Hi guys, sorry that this video is super overdue, but yeah, I finally got the chance to just sit down and record this. So today I'll be going through different ways that you could play chords to make them sound more interesting, I guess, and like when to use them. This video is gonna assume that you have a basic knowledge of chords and their inversions. So for example, a G major chord in the root position would be this. And the first, sorry, excuse my piano, it's like super out of tune. And then the first inversion would be this, and then the second inversion would be this. I would encourage you to practice inversions as much as you can so that when you're playing chords in a progression, you're not like jumping around too much, and it just also sounds nicer. Okay, so the first chord that I want to talk about is the second. And I call it the second because you add the second note of the chord and you use that instead of the third note. So for example, for G major, the notes would be G, the third note of the scale, which is B, and the fifth note of the scale, which is D. But then for the second, you would use the second note of the scale, A, instead of the third note. So then the notes would be G, A, and D. So that's the root position. And then you would do the first inversion, which is this, and the third inversion, which is... Usually what I like to do is add the octave, so add another D at the top of this second inversion chord, because it just creates a fuller sound. Basically, if we're in the key of G, you would use it if you were to play G, G over B, or C. So it would sound like... Notice that I don't do the root position of every chord. Like for C, I use the second inversion just because that makes it easier, so I don't have to switch from... And it just sounds better too. And then because it's the second inversion, I'm also gonna add the octave again. So the next chord that I want to talk about is adding the fourth note of the scale instead of the third. So back to G major, it's going to be G, C, and then D. Usually this chord resolves back to the 3. So yeah, and you use this, let's say we're in the key of G, you can use this for G, or you can use it for the fifth chord, which is D. It kind of signifies that you're going back to the G. Like it just naturally resolves back to the main chord, the key that we're in. But usually, yeah, you would use it going back to the verse of a song or something. So the next chord that I want to talk about is a minor 7. In the key of G, we would use it for E minor 7 or A minor 7. You're adding the 7th note of the scale. So for E minor 7, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So then you're adding the 7th note. But we rarely like to use the root position chord of this because it sounds kind of funky. And because you're already playing the E in the bass, you can take out that first note, that E. So that just leaves you with G, B, and D, which is essentially a G major chord. The root position is the first inversion and the second inversion. I usually like to play it first inversion, omitting the E. I also play this with the A minor chord. Taking out the A again, so it's this. So the next chord I want to talk about is the major 7, which is very similar to the minor 7, except it's for major chords. So for example, in the key of G, you would use it for C major 7. And again, I like to not use the C for root position. But I like to add it back sometimes for the first inversion. And then you could also use it for the 1 chord, which is G, but that's like not as common. So Another cool thing that you can do is add the 9 to your 7 chords. So for example, E minor 7, that is E, G, B, and D. And then the 9th note is, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, F sharp. I take out the E, so it's just this now. But then I move this F sharp down here an octave. So you can do E minor 7, or you can do E minor 7 and then add the 9th note, if that makes sense. Oh my gosh. And then you can also do this for the major 7 chords that we talked about. For C, let's say 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So I do the same thing, take out the bottom C. So I just had this. And I like to move the D down an octave so it's easier. So we're gonna keep going and add even more than the 9. So we can add in a sharp 11. We use this for the 4th chord in the scale of the key that we're in. So for G major, that would be C, because C is the 4th note of the scale. So C major. So I would add the sharp 11. So we have 1 to 8, 9, 10, 11, and then this is the sharp 11. So F sharp basically is what we want to add. I'm already doing C major, so let's say I'm doing like a C2. Then I just put in this sharp 11, and then I resolve it back up to the G. I'm sure that was a lot, and maybe it just like kind of went past you. So let's put that into action through This Is My Desire, which is a very simple, straightforward song. The chords start off just G. Instead of doing this, now we can do G2. And then for E minor, we can do E minor 7. And then we can do C2, G2, and then D sus, resolving it to the F sharp. I'm just gonna use quarter notes. We'll go over more things later. Okay, let's go.